If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. Inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Good evening, and welcome to Night Gallery.
Thank you, Rod. And I want to welcome everyone to Midnight Viewing, where once a month we talk all about your follow-up to The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's Night Gallery.
They say it's Rod Serling's Night Gallery, and it isn't really Rod Serling's Night Gallery, it's somebody else's.
Oh, we know. We talk about it a lot. Your curators at Midnight Viewing are the projection booth's Mike White.
What can happen to human beings when trust is wiped out by suspicion?
And CultureCast's Chris Stashew.
Small boy encased in a crystal ball.
And I'm Father Malone.
The kind of thing that usually infests nightmares.
Join us monthly at Midnight Viewing, the Night Gallery podcast at weirdingwaymedia.com.
Doesn't remotely belong to me. I have no proprietary interest in that at all.
Hello there, I'm Chris Stashew.
Hey, this is Father Malone.
And this is Mike White.
And we are the hosts of Dreams for Sale, a monthly look at the Twilight Zone 1985. The show is a reboot of the classic anthology from the 60s. We cover one episode a month, and we are on episode 4, so if you're just listening to us now, head on back and listen to the first 3. We cover some really great episodes. I don't know how this episode's going to pan out yet. I know how I felt. I'm curious what Mike and Father Malone think, so let's get right into it with Little Boy Lost.
The song unsung, the wish unfulfilled. Even with the dream in hand, there is the chill of an eternal loss. Fading, fading. For every choice made, wrong or right, 1,000 alternatives denied. When tomorrow calls, sometimes the heart must be denied. For Carol Shelton, there will be other tomorrows, other joys, and yet, fading, fading. For one trembling instant, she was given the opportunity to take snapshots of an alternate future, snapshots forever undeveloped in the darkness of the Twilight Zone.
All right, Little Boy Lost is the first segment of episode 4. It aired October 18th, 1985. It's directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. So yeah, it was written by Lynn Barker, apparently. And it stars Scott Grimes and Season Hubley, and it centers around Season Hubley as a woman who's trying to decide if she wants to pursue a career or settle down and have a family with her boyfriend. And in the midst of making this decision, she encounters a strange young boy who helps to make her decision in a way that could only happen in the Twilight Zone. So I thought this episode was a little preachy, in my opinion.
a little preachy. Holy
well,
Lord.
I don't want to be like, this is the preachiest episode since Kentucky Rye, but I mean, it kind of is.
I think it's far more preachy than that episode. This might be the most preachy episode of any Twilight Zone, including Rod Serling at his most, preach-tastic.
Wasn't there an episode of the original series where a guy goes to a town and there's like the younger version of himself?
Yeah. Well, was that a Stop at Willoughby? No, that was sort of a Paradise sort of episode. Yeah, but there absolutely was.
I was almost thinking that was this, but then when there was a gender swap of the child, so it was obviously not the Season Hudley character. And as soon as this little boy shows up, she's a photographer. She's trying to get a model for a shoot. And there's this discussion at the beginning about her and her career and how important her career is versus needing a husband or marrying this guy, settling down, having kids, all that kind of stuff. And then when this little boy shows up, I was just like, oh, okay, I got what's going on here. This is the boy that she could have if she settles down. And wow, isn't she going to have a fantastic time today? Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty clear from the get-go what was going on in this episode. There was no twist at all. This is, I got to say, this is my least favorite episode of any of the Twilight Zones. The preachiness is just insane. And it should be pointed out that, early in the episode, yes, you mentioned she is like discussing with her boyfriend Greg, who that she got this promotion and she'll be traveling around the world, and it's been her dream for her entire life. And I just kept writing in my notes, Greg is a dick. His reaction is just like,
job, baby. Like, oh,
yeah,
dude, what in the fuck? Boy, you're a misogynistic turd, aren't you?
My whole world's falling apart, and we're gonna go see Eddie Murphy kick the trash can.
Yeah, he wasn't good. She had her dream, and he wanted her to give it up, and the episode seems to want her to give it up, too. And I really just couldn't get behind that.
Well, so here's the thing, and something I'm curious about, because we've run into this before on our own podcast about things not aging well. When this aired in 85, it's not offensive, but it's a little tone deaf. For sure. Was it tone deaf then? Because it's tone deaf now.
It felt that way to me even then. Yeah, I mean, this seems like if it had come out maybe like during the Roe v. Wade time period, like in the early 70s, maybe it would be acceptable. But even then, like the way it's handled is not. I think there is a good episode to be made about the choice a woman has to make in her life. But this is so clumsy that it not only doesn't age well, but it was not age appropriate at the time.
Okay, so I'm glad that was the case then, because it seems like this would be an episode written by a man. It's clearly not written by a man. So you would think that Lynn Barker would have a little bit more of her finger on the pulse of, actually maybe having gone through a similar decision in her life. And yet it just seems like, to, borrow a phrase from the last episode, they're clucking their tongue. They're clicking their tongue at us. Like, you always put your kids first. Don't put yourself first. Like, what the fuck kind of generalities are these?
Yeah, it was totally insane. Like, she says, like, this was my dream for years. And he says, what about my dreams? Well, you know what, dude? Go find a girl who wants to have kids and settle down.
Yeah, exactly. Don't expect her to change her dreams. Yeah. And maybe they should have had this conversation earlier, but it kind of points to the importance of having that conversation, knowing where you stand, and yeah, I mean, maybe being accepting of the other person that you want to be with.
That could have been the thrust of the episode, this sort of communication, because I think we all known people who have gotten married, and those people have not in any way had that conversation, which is important, and that could have been a better thrust of the episode, because ultimately it comes down as sort of some anti-abortion PSA for 22 or however many long minutes it was.
Well, I was about to say, like, the three of us are all married to, we all have significant others. And it, like, I find this episode a little bizarre because, like you guys have been saying, it's like, why are they having this conversation in the middle of the street waiting to go see Eddie Murphy's Raw? Like, when the fuck? That's like, look, there's an appropriate time for this conversation, but in front of a movie theater before you go see Eddie Murphy say faggot a bunch of times isn't that time. And the fact that was the point in the episode where they were starting the conflict seemed a little strange to me.
Particularly strange because when they have their final conversation where she's saying, look, I took the job and I'm leaving, she says, you knew this from the get-go. And he's like, yeah, I did, but I thought I could change you. Which makes him even more of a dick.
Right.
And he is a dick. And, you know, and I think that that's the thing about this episode that is the redeeming part, is that she makes a decision for herself. At least there's that positive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at the very least, she doesn't sort of succumb to the sort of societal pressure there and decides to go on with her life. But good Lord, what a clumsy and awkward episode this is.
And yeah, it does go on for way too long.
Yeah, it go way too long.
No, I just think, like, you know, this is one of the episodes where we have 3 stories, including sort of an interstitial one. Like, how about just make this the 7 or 8 minute episode, because it's way too long, and it's not like there is a twist. Like, once the boy shows up, it's like, oh, okay, this is her son from the future, and, you know, even he, like, begs her at the end, like, you know, to like have him. It's just, it's vile.
Yeah. You know, abortion stops a beating heart.
Wow. That's horrifying. Mm-hmm. The real question is, since obviously Jordan Peele's show has gotten like a teaser, you think that this episode's going to make a reappearance? Because I think it would really piss off a lot of people if they just redid this episode.
God, I hope not.
Right. Of all the episodes you decided to do, Jordan, you're going with Little Boy Lost, huh?
I kind of hope they do remake this episode and do it in a balanced way.
Right?
That would be fun. Hey, by the way, just as an aside, Mike, you'll appreciate this. Lynn Barker, one of her other writing credits was for Whiz Kids.
Yes, I noticed that. I was so happy. I think she did like 2 episodes.
Yes, Whiz Kids.
Yes, your favorite show of all time, Chris.
Yes.
You know what? No, I'm done with this Twilight Zone podcast. Let's do the Whiz Kids next month, huh?
Wow. Yeah, who cares about Twilight Zone? There's no cultural significance whatsoever.
Whiz Kids, on the other hand, everyone's still talking about that show.
Don't watch this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Kentucky Rye had its moments. This episode doesn't even have its moments.
No, at least that episode we had some kind of good characterization. Like, you know, it got way too preachy at the end, but at least the journey was kind of interesting. I mean, it gives itself away fairly early, but not as quickly as this. Like, it left you guessing a little bit. This one is just like, oh, here's her son from the possible future. Gross.
Yeah, it's just a very tried and true trope, and it's not one that I find particularly interesting then, now, or ever. So, all right, so let's move on to the next episode, or the next segment of the episode, Wishbank. Wishbank was directed by Rick Friedberg, written by Michael Cassett, stars Dee Wallace Stone, Julie Carmen, and Harvey Vernon. Episode centers around Dee Wallace Stone when she picks up an antique oil lamp at a garage sale and rubs it. I wanted to see which one of you was going to break at that one. And she rubs that lamp and gets transported to a bureaucratic wish department. I guess that's the only way I would describe it.
Yeah, that's probably the best description of it. It does seem like in the 1980s, there was this thing where people were like reinterpreting fantasy in this bureaucratic way. They did it again in Beetlejuice a couple years later with the sort of afterlife thing. I don't know what was going on there where people thought that this was a clever idea, because it's not. It's actually really boring.
Yeah, but at least in Beetlejuice, it was entertaining.
Yeah, I kind of like Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah. I'm not complaining about Beetlejuice. I'm just saying, like, it was a clumsy thought that could be handled really well in someone like Michael McDowell's hands. But I think people thought that just the idea of this sort of bureaucratic layer on top of a fantastical sort of idea is somehow in and of itself interesting, and it's not. It's the way it's handled.
This segment of episode 4 is a mess, which is unfortunate because the last interstitial we had, because this is like 7 minutes, was Children's Zoo. And Children's Zoo was amazing.
Yeah, with like virtually no dialogue.
Yeah, and you had Dad Wes Craven in there, and in this, you have Dee Wallace Stone, she's a fantastic actress. She's given practically nothing to do other than to sit there.
Yeah, she is effortlessly charming.
Yeah, and this is just like, okay, whatever. So she is careful what she wishes for. Ha ha. Okay.
It raises more questions than it answers. And every time they bring up new things, you're like, at least for me, I was just like, okay, well, how does that work? But then they don't want to answer the questions. So, I mean, I was so disappointed with this because I'm okay with that idea of laying the bureaucracy over something, you know, even things like R.I.P.D. movies like that where it's like, oh, look at Heaven is an Office or Men in Black, and where do these guys go at the end of the day to have their coffee or whatever. Great, but yeah, this just didn't do it for me, and I would have been fine. There's a moment where she gets to the back of the line and you see all these other people and who are there allegedly, cashing in their wishes as well. I would have liked to have spent my time with all those other people rather than the people who are running the bank. It didn't do anything for me at all.
Well, and the other thing is, like we kind of mentioned a little bit, it would have been better if this had been a time swap with Little Boy Lost. Because there's a lot to this, like you mentioned, Mike, there's a lot to this episode that really does raise some interesting questions. And it feels very much like a time crunch. It's like, oh, we don't have enough time, so, we'll mention this thing and then we'll just move on. It's like, but why? There's some interesting ideas here. It's just none of them are fully expounded upon. And at the end of the day, like you said, more questions than answers, and it hurts the segment.
Yeah, we don't even get to see, the wishes going wrong in any way, really. It's just sort of it's a grind to have to stand around and wait and fill out different forms and get in different lines. It wasn't like, oh, I got this wish and it turned out bad for me. I mean, I guess that was their intent to show a different interpretation of the monkey's paw, but at the same time, it's just nothing really happens. We get to see a view of the bureaucracy in action, and who cares?
I mean, don't they even make a reference usually you wish for one thing, the second thing undoes the first, or, and it has that trope to it. But yeah, we never see those wishes happen. And then at the end, when she unwishes everything, there's no one around. So I'm like, well, who's actually getting her order at this point?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it sort of betrays its own version of the bureaucracy there. I don't want any of these wishes now. Okay, go get in that line. Maybe her being trapped in there forever would have been a more interesting idea.
Right.
But don't you get it, guys? It's like the DMV. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Okay, it's a creative idea, but so what? I mean, creative ideas don't get you very far.
No, everyone has ideas.
Yeah, it's a creative idea, but you didn't do much with it, and boy, that's the disappointing part. So, all right, so let's move on to the final segment of episode 4, Nightcrawlers. Right, Nightcrawlers is directed by Billy Friedkin, written by Philip DeGuerre, based off of a story by Robert R. McCammon, stars James Whitmore Jr., Scott Pollan, and Bobby Bass, and it centers around a drifter who inherited an interesting set of abilities during the Vietnam War, and he is stuck in a diner with some local yokels, and some travelers as well. This is an interesting segment. It's okay.
Yeah, it's not as bad as I remember it. Looking back on it now, it seems like at the time, just to put it in a bit of context, I guess, I don't think people had really sort of come to grips with the legacy of the Vietnam War. And this is certainly prior to Platoon, when the discussion kind of broke wide open. So in that respect, it's actually really admirable that they would even attempt it. And, I think the episode is dealing with a lot of the sort of themes of, these guys were abandoned twice. The sort of government gave up on the war after they had been through hell, and then they got home, and then they were given a whole other version of abandonment where nobody wanted to deal with them or were in any way interested in what they had done over there. So, on that level, I really like the episode a lot. However, it is handled kind of insanely. I haven't read the short story, so I can't speak to that. But I think overall, it's kind of a failure of an episode. But at the same time, I appreciate what they were going for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember when First Blood Part 2 came out. Where it was the whole question of, do we get to win this time? And that whole refighting the Vietnam War. And so there's that aspect of it. And then there's also that fire starter Stephen King aspect of it as well, which is, hey, the government kept this war really shady, and there might have been experiments on, the vets that were happening over there. There was a lot of drug use happening over there to keep soldiers up and going and all this kind of stuff. So the experiments, the MKUltra program, yada, 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 that seems to all kind of coalesce in this episode as well. So there's some clever ideas in here. I'm just not sure if they necessarily executed as well as they could, but it's okay, I would have. I think, like you, I would like to go back and actually read the short story and see how it compares.
You know what this episode, or you know what this segment reminded me of? The episode Unrequited from the X-Files, which is like a similar thing where it's like, we're going to talk about the Vietnam War, but like the guy is an invisible assassin, and you know, what's like the fallout of the Vietnam War look like, and the POWs, and that's what this reminded me of, except that episode was like a million times better than this. But it was also given more time to breathe, which again goes back to Wishbank and Little Boy Lost. If Wishbank hadn't been there and Little Boy Lost, or if Wishbank had been longer and Little Boy Lost hadn't existed at all, you would have had two segments splitting the time of the full episode. And I think Nightcrawlers might have actually been given a little bit more time to breathe and kind of develop the characters and the story a little bit.
I totally agree with that. In fact, I think you could get rid of Little Boy Lost and Wishbank and just give this the full hour and spend a little more time building these characters and getting more into the sort of underpinnings of why he has these powers and what was done over there, because there's a lot of interesting stuff here, particularly the idea that he felt a bit of cowardice, that like he abandoned his team and now they're coming to get him for that, like his own guilt is coming back for him.
It kind of reminded me also of the segment from the Twilight Zone, the movie, the one with Vic Morrow, because that had something to do with like him going back and trying to save these war orphans, and just that whole idea of the war not being fought completely. But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily remember that episode in the movie for some reason.
Well, that was more about Vic Morrow figuring out the point of view of people that he looked down upon, other races and stuff, because he was making fun of them all. So he got forced to be a Jew during World War II, and he got forced to be a Vietnamese sort of villager during Vietnam, and what it was like to be an African American during the sort of lynching period of the 50s and 60s.
Boy, that segment in the movie is actually pretty good, too.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, obviously, it is forever tainted with the death of Vic Morrow, but it's a solid episode, or a solid segment of the movie.
Yeah, and the really biggest disappointment in regards to this segment of the show is that it's directed by Billy Friedkin, and it doesn't feel like he brought anything to it.
No, it feels like they gave him a big budget because it was William Friedkin, and he got to blow up a lot of stuff at the end.
Yeah, those cars never stood a chance.
Well, and this is the only episode he directed. This is the only segment of the show he directed, yeah. So it's kind of a bummer,
Yeah, and let me just mention briefly Scott Pollan. Yeah, this is another actor I think is an underrated guy. I think he does a really good job. I don't think the editing serves him very well in the episode, because I think he's really going for it, but I think some judicious editing would have made his performance even better. I think he's really good. I think James Whitmore Jr. there is real good as the sort of cop. Even Exene Cervenka of the band X is the waitress in it. I liked her a lot too. So there's a lot to recommend this episode. It just doesn't seem to come together very well. And that weird thing at the end where the soldier kicks that door in, which was a beautiful shot, and then they repeated it for some reason.
Yeah, and I like the whole idea of, the unsuspecting people that all come together at a diner, and some of them might be something that you're not really sure about. That whole trope that we have in movies and storytelling. But to Chris's point, there's a lot of people in this diner, and we never really learn that much about them. I mean, this becomes Price's story, which is fine. It can be Price's story, but we spend enough time with some of these other people and looking at these other people at the beginning where I'm just like, oh, well, they're going to have some interesting stories to tell or something happening with them. No.
Well, and again, I think that really does go back to the length of time that the show is given and the length of the segments, because it is a lot of time taken away from what could have been, like we've said, a potentially really standout segment that falls flat because Little Boy Lost and Wishbank got so much time.
Yeah, but to speak to your idea, Mike, the whole beginning of the episode is about this family showing up, and we spend so much time with them, and they deliver absolutely nothing at all. If they had just focused on maybe the cop and the cook and the waitress and this guy, that could have given us even 5 more minutes, would have made it a better episode, and a little more backstory on those guys. Maybe they were vets as well. Like the cop could have been, have fought in the Korean War and make the cook even older, like he fought in World War II, like some kind of an examination of warfare and what it does, and how they were received, because that's what the episode was sort of striving for. So what do we give a shit about this family that shows up because they're, it's too rainy outside for them?
I really like that idea.
Well, and they're meant to be the audience, right? But, it just falls flat.
I guess so, but you know what? We're the audience, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It just completely falls flat. It just doesn't work. And it's disappointing that it doesn't work, because of the 3 segments in this episode, this is the only one that I was mildly invested in. The other 2 were offensive, misguided in their tone, and then just, again, similarly to Nightcrawlers, Wishbank's just not given enough time.
I will say, ultimately, I think this is worth a watch. Of the 3, and maybe just in general, I think it's an interesting enough story, and I think Scott Paulin's performance is really good. So I do recommend people see this one.
I won't disagree.
He was also Red Skull in the 1990 Captain America movie.
Ooh,
he was.
He sure was, wasn't he?
And for some reason they made him Italian in that movie.
Yeah, I still don't get why they switched from German to Italian. That was such a weird thing.
Other than the fact that they were going to be shooting in the Mediterranean for some of the scenes, so they're like, well, let's just tie it in this way. One of those Axis powers was Italian, wasn't it?
On the next episode of Dreams for Sale, we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 5. That episode has 2 segments, If She Dies and Ye Gods. I know nothing about either, but at least there's only 2 next time as opposed to 3. Maybe they'll be given a little bit more time to breathe. Fingers crossed. When we're not doing Dreams for Sale, where can people find you, Mr. Mike White?
You can find me over at the Kolchak Tapes, which is at kolchaktapes.com, where every month we are talking about the Kolchak Night Stalker series. And you can also find me over at the Projection Booth Podcast, which is available at projectionboothpodcast.com, where every week I talk about a different strange and unusual film.
What about you, Father Malone?
Well, you can also hear me on another podcast about the 1990s Tales from the Crypt television series on HBO, hosted with this other insane fellow. And you can also find me on my YouTube channel, which is Ot5 Films. I have a show called You've Never Seen, where I examine sort of movies that have fallen by the wayside or never got their due.
And you can find me on Twitter at Culture Stash. And if you like listening to movie podcasts, you can check out my movie podcast, The Culture Cast, where myself and my buddy Eric talk about movies twice a week. And that's over at culturecast.com. If you want to find out more about Dreams for Sale, head on over to twilightzone85.com, where you'll find the feed for the rest of the episodes. And if you want to check out the last 3 that we've done, we actually talked about some good segments, some of the best segments that we've seen so far, and probably of the show entirely. So you should go back and check those out. Big thanks, as always, to Roxy Drive and Neutron Dreams for the intro-outro music for Dreams for Sale, and we will catch you all in the next episode.